If you find yourself overthinking about how to do everything the right way and you're tired of delaying tasks or taking action because it all just feels too overwhelming, then you are in the right place. Perfecting Imperfectionism invites you to move past overthinking and self-doubt, declutter your mind, and create a life that reflects who you really are. I'm Meredith, and I'm a certified professional coach and ambitious professional. My mission is to show you the power of embracing imperfectionism so you too can create a career and life you love. Let's start perfecting imperfectionism. Hello, and welcome back to Perfecting Imperfectionism. I'm your host, Meredith, a certified professional coach who helps ambitious professionals build confidence, ditch perfectionism, and become the kind of leader that others want to follow. And this is our second episode, and I'm so excited to have you back. In our first episode, I shared why I started this podcast and how my own journey toward dismantling my own perfectionism brought me here. And today we are going to dive into perfectionism a little bit deeper, which is something that has probably shaped your life even more than you realize. And it's the entire reason that I started this podcast. So you might think that you already know what it is, but often, perfectionism is sneakier and way more layered than most of us think. So in this episode, we are going to explore what perfectionism actually is and what it isn't, how it shows up in both obvious ways and hidden ways or more subtle ways, and the phrases that we say to ourselves that do reveal that it is perfectionism, even when we don't explicitly say the word perfect. And finally, I'll talk about how to begin to start noticing it in real time. And then if you're ready, taking that next step to gently stop it from completely running everything that you're doing. So let's get into it. First, like I said, we'll talk about what perfectionism is. So perfectionism is not about doing things really well. It's not about caring deeply or having high standards, because at its core, perfectionism is actually a fear-based pattern. It's how we try to protect ourselves, and it's usually from judgment or failure or rejection at the very highest level. And what ends up happening is that we internalize this belief that if we can just do or say everything the right way, then we will be safe. We will be respected. We won't disappoint anyone. And so we begin to measure our worth by how efficiently we do things, how thorough we are, and how our work or our messages are received. But perfectionism doesn't actually keep us safe. It keeps us stuck, and it fosters burnout and encourages self-doubt and a lack of confidence in just being enough as we are. And it's like this quiet voice in your head that's telling you this isn't ready yet, or don't leave anything important out, or don't mess this up. And it really robs us of the joy and the growth and the freedom that come from showing up as our real selves. And it complicates things for our brains, and it makes work and life harder. It prevents us from building resilience, and it wastes our precious energy. It fosters imposter syndrome, and it makes it more challenging to be confident in who we are and the value that we bring. And sometimes we don't even know that we're not confident, or that we don't believe in ourselves, or that we're not being authentic, because this is just this mask that we wear and have worn for our whole lives. And oftentimes when I see people just existing seemingly effortlessly or happily or authentically, and it's in an area that I haven't quite dismantled the perfectionism in yet, I love to make the joke like, ugh, Wow, what is it like to be so unbothered? I can't imagine what it's like to just be so unbothered by all the things that are going around you and not trying to do everything exactly perfectly the right way and make sure everybody's good all the time and think through every possible scenario or way to do something efficiently. Like, that's amazing. And that's what I want. I love this for them. I want this for me. I've built a lot of this for me, and I want this for you. And this may sound like something that is so hard to overcome. But the good news about being more unbothered and doing our work and writing emails and delivering a presentation, all the things that we may currently feel stuck or are really hard to get through, is that those things can be simple. And personally, I spent probably the first 30 years of my life completely caught in this pattern and not realizing just how much it was holding me back and slowing me down and draining my energy and putting weight on my shoulders and causing tension and burnout and strife in my life, unnecessary strife. There were times that I wouldn't reach out to someone who I wanted to talk to. I would rewrite an email 10 times, or I'd sometimes delete messages that I had sent or a post I'd made on social media. And not because I didn't know what I was doing, but because I was terrified of getting it wrong or of being misunderstood. And as a result, being judged for not knowing better. And I thought perfectionism was the price of being taken seriously and accepted. But in reality, it was the cost of my authenticity and my sanity. So now that we've talked about what perfectionism is, let's talk about what perfectionism isn't. And let's be super clear on this. So perfectionism is not the same as healthy striving. It is not about ambition. It's not about being detail-oriented, because those things are rooted in growth and they're rooted in values and work ethic. Perfectionism is different because it is driven by fear. And at the surface, we may think, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. I'm not scared. I'm not terrified. But when we think, I don't want to fail, I don't want to not be enough, I'm worried about what other people think, that is coming from a fear of failure. That's coming from a fear of feeling that you're not enough or good enough. It's coming from a fear of the unknown, of what other people will think of you, or a fear of a negative thought they might have about you. And this fear and perfectionism overall is not a personality trait. It's not just how you are. It is completely a coping strategy. It's a very deeply conditioned response. And that is really great news, because it means that we can unlearn it. We can dismantle it. We can break it apart piece by piece. We can untangle it. Whatever visual or you need to get through it can be undone. And you can create space to live an easier life and have a simpler path for yourself. And know that you are not broken. You've just been using a tool that worked for you at some point. And now, if you found this podcast, if you're listening to this, if you're curious, if you're inspired by things that I'm saying, even if you feel like it's not exactly, everything isn't exactly landing with you, some of this is probably getting in the way for you. If there's anything here that has interested you or felt relatable in some way, perfectionism is probably getting in the way. And we can fix it. We can work on this. So let's talk about the two faces of perfectionism. So whether it is obvious or subtle. And so there are two types, and I mentioned this in episode 1 very briefly, but it's overt and covert. And overt perfectionism is loud. This is the one that you are probably most familiar with. This looks like micromanaging or rewriting an email 17 times or staying up until 1 a.m. to triple check something or waking up in the middle of the night to triple check something. It's not wanting to share your presentation with your manager for initial feedback until you have it as close to the end product as possible, or saying, I'll just do it myself so it gets done right. It could also be throwing away an entire cake because you made a dent in the frosting that you're having trouble fixing. Or it's taking a paint and sip class and going over and over a spot of a line on a flower just to get that line just like the artist instructor painted, and then now making it so thick, that line, because you painted it over and over again, the paint is so thick that it looks worse than the original imperfect, beautiful line that you first painted. That may or may not happen to me when I take art classes. But anyway, like this type of perfectionism is performance heavy, and it is visible. It's visible. It's what most people picture. It is obvious. Then, on the other hand, there is covert perfectionism. And this is the sneaky one because it can look like procrastination. And we're like not starting because you're not ready, or over researching instead of taking action. It could be having trouble prioritizing because actually every single thing feels important. It could be feeling paralyzed when starting a new task or project, like that blank page just stresses you out, even if you have an idea of what it might look like at the very end. It's just like, where do I even begin? It's needing external validation and perspectives before moving forward with an idea. It could be burnout from overworking or spending your high levels of energy, like mental, physical, emotional energy on everything. It could be resentment toward others who don't try as hard, or avoidance of joy or rest or health or hobbies until you have your work under control. It could be getting frustrated when others make mistakes at work or in your life. And in a more like day-to-day outside of work example, it could be scrolling on Netflix or Hulu for more than a few minutes until you find just the right show or movie to watch. It could be like worrying you're not processing or healing correctly, or needing to excessively explain or justify your choices or ideas, or taking forever to reply to non-urgent messages. There are so many ways that this can show up. And I have lived both of these types of perfectionism. There have been seasons in my life where I've been visibly striving and overworking and extremely ambitious to a fault and anxious. And then there have been other seasons where I've convinced myself that I wasn't ready to try and it wasn't the right time, or I will just do this stuff first and then I'll go handle that. When deep down, I was scared to be seen doing something the wrong way and small and like not quite being an expert at it, or worrying that like any amount of progress wasn't going to be enough. So like self-rejecting the possibilities of doing work that would like help me, like taking care of my health and things like that. So these are things that I've experienced, and now I'm learning much more how to challenge myself, which we will get into. But before we do that, I'd love for you to take a moment, and feel free to pause this if you need to do some reflection, and consider, do you tend to be more overt or covert when you experience perfectionism? And maybe perfectionism isn't even like the biggest problem that you are experiencing for yourself, but if you have any ounce of it at all, which one do you lean more toward? The really obvious one, or the more subtle signs of perfectionism, or maybe a mix of both? So just notice that. What I want to talk about next is what perfectionism can sound like in our heads. And this is where things can get really like mind-blowing if you haven't explored this before. Because it doesn't always sound like this has to be perfect. I need this presentation to be perfect. I need this email to be perfect. I need to say the words out of my mouth perfect or perfectly. It's usually much subtler. And so I'm going to share a few phrases that sound normal, but can actually indicate perfectionism in disguise. So it could be things like, oh, it's not ready yet. Or I just need to be thorough. I just need to be thorough. I don't want to disappoint anyone. I don't want to confuse anyone. Oh, I just need to know more. So once I know more, then I can start. Or they're going to think I don't know what I'm doing. This has to be really clear. I should be able to handle this on my own. If I can't do this completely or all the way, I shouldn't do it at all. I shouldn't even start it. Or once I have this thing, or once I do this task or achieve this goal, then I will feel better. Then I can slow down, and then I will be good, and I'll feel good, and everything will work out. Do any of those sound familiar? These are thoughts that are deeply tied to worth and fear. And when we can start identifying them, we can begin to disarm them and reduce the amount of power they have over the action that we take. And we can begin to separate who we are from these thoughts that try to run the show. So how do you actually recognize perfectionism in real time? So we're going to talk about how to spot perfectionism in action. And there's 3 ways that you can do this. So it's by paying attention to 3 different things, actually. So it's your behavioral signs, emotional signs, and physical signs. So for behavior, you can start to look at, are you procrastinating on completing something that matters to you? Are you endlessly editing something or completely scrapping something and restarting it all over again? Are you avoiding making a decision? Are you avoiding replying to a message or an email or something like that? For emotional, you can tap into what's going on in your body and some of the emotions that you're experiencing. So are you feeling dread for anything, shame, anxiety, or a sense of not feeling like you're enough? Then for physical, you can start to pay attention to if areas of your body are tense. Like a lot of that can sit in your shoulders and your neck. We can like scrunch up quite a bit if we're feeling these things. Are you clenching your jaw? Are you breathing really shallowly? And shallowly means like your breath is only getting to the bottom of your neck. This is something that I'm learning really recently about myself, is that like I don't breathe all the way back down into my diaphragm and expand my lungs so that my diaphragm expands too. So that's something that's causing some other physical issues. But that's something that is helping me quite a bit too. So yeah, like where are you tense? Where are you holding things in your body? What's going on in your body? And then once you kind of start to tune into those 3 signs, so behavioral, emotional, and physical, then you can ask yourself questions and be curious about some of the ways that perfectionism shows up for you. So I'm going to give you some examples here, but if there's something specific that resonated with you or that came up for you that maybe I didn't even mention, get curious about that and try to frame your questions in the style of these. So you can ask yourself, what do I think will happen if I get this wrong? What do I think will happen if I miss the mark? And you can ask, would I hold a friend or a colleague or a family member to the same standard? And you can also ask, is this about quality or is this about control? Is this about fear? Is this about trying to control the result, like the reaction to what I put out there? That's a great one to ask yourself, is if you are doing something to control the reaction of others rather than doing something for quality or doing something that you know is good work. Which is it about? And get really, really curious and try to understand deep within yourself, why are you reacting or showing up in this way to this thing that's causing you to procrastinate or avoid something or redo something? And sometimes you may find that it is a quality thing and maybe a lesson that you've learned. Like a manager really likes when you have, like in your email, like the main idea, the headline at the top of the email, and then like a quick bulleted list of what's going to be covered, and then more detail at the bottom. Like if it's something that you have been told to do specifically and it makes sense and it's something that you've agreed on and you're aware of, like that's different than, oh God, what if a manager doesn't like this? Or like, what if they're confused? Or what if they have a question? I don't want them to come back with any questions or think that I don't know what I'm doing. Let them ask the question. So just because somebody asks a question doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. They're just being curious too. So be curious with yourself. And when you start to ask yourself these questions and slow down, like the biggest piece of advice I have for you is to just slow down with your curiosity and tune into what's going on inside. Because this is where perfectionism starts to lose its grip. It's not by shaming it. It's not by judging it. It's not by, being frantic about it or pushing through it. It's by getting curious. And just by being curious, you will learn more and more. Okay. So some tips for how to notice and stop in real time. So let's talk about what to do when you notice this creeping in. So first step you need to take is to notice. So catch that thought, catch that action, and then slow down, pause and ask yourself, what is driving me right now? Where is this coming from? Get deep, deep, deep. Use those questions we just talked about. You can ask if it's being driven by fear or trust, if it's being driven by actual evidence, information that you have already, like a preference from a manager, or just wanting to avoid any kind of question or feedback they could give you. Oh, are you avoiding feedback? That was a huge one for me. Ugh. You can also ask, is this pressure coming from my values? Or is it coming from my fear of not being enough? Like, really, really think about what matters to you and use that as your anchor to gauge whether or not this is a perfectionist tendency. And then if you do discover that it's perfectionism, name it. Tell yourself, this is perfectionism. I see it. I'm glad I saw it. I'm not judging it. This is good to know. This is good information to have. Then you can tell yourself, I'm going to choose something else. I'm going to try to optimize instead. This is where, and I'll talk about this a lot in future episodes, is optimization rather than perfectionism. So you can tell yourself, I'm going to choose to optimize rather than perfect. The second thing is to interrupt. And so these are some small pattern breakers, and you will find what works for you. These are some things that can get you started. So I love this idea of going for the B-. This is something that was taught in my coaching program, and I love this idea. Is, we are so used to experiencing our value and our output from grades in school, like from, the time we are 5 years old through 22, sometimes well into our 30s if we go into a lot more schooling. Like, we are used to getting a grade that is placing a specific value on the work that we're doing, and sometimes it's even on a curve and graded against everybody else. Oh, so because our minds are in that headspace unintentionally, basically forever, you may be trying to get an A+ all the time, when the real world does not work that way. It doesn't matter if you get an A+. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that you're going to get a promotion or sell more products or have your team love you more. An A plus does not indicate any kind of real value in the workplace. So, to help yourself come back from that thinking, try to get it to a B minus. Use that 80% rule. Is this at an 80% good enough to move forward? Is this a B minus in my book? And then you can share that final product or that email or whatever. And then the feedback that you get, sometimes your B minus may be an A plus 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 for somebody else. Or your B minus might be just enough for your manager to have one or two pieces of feedback. It could also be an opportunity for people to help you clean up something that maybe you wouldn't have even thought of if you were going for that A plus. Like it might have been a totally other thing in the work that you're doing that wasn't even on your radar. So like you don't need to spend that effort going from 80% to 100 when that might not have even gotten you what you needed. So small pattern breaker, 80% rule. The next one I'd recommend is time box your time to complete something or refine it. So I'm giving myself 10 minutes to write this email. And if it's more than 10 minutes, do one final check, hit send, or don't even do the check. Oh, I can't even. Just hit send. Or if it's completely incomplete, stop and reevaluate and give yourself the grace that you need to figure it out. But like, try to write and send the email in 10 minutes. And if you're working on something big and you're just refining it over and over, tell yourself, I have 15 more minutes to refine and then I'm done. And then you can pick the thing that you need to refine the most. What are the glaring issues? That's a question I love to ask myself. What is a glaring issue in this? Is there a glaring, obvious issue? And if there's not a glaring, obvious issue, send it off. Send it off. And then the last thing is do it messy. And this is kind of like the glaring issue. You know, like share something before it is completely polished. Hit send. Say yes before you're fully ready. Reply to that message or email. Share your 80% done PowerPoint with your manager. Or 20%. Say, hey manager, I finished 3 pages of this PowerPoint. I have 10 more that I'm planning out and mapping out, but what do you think of this? Am I in the right direction? Any glaring issues? Should I keep going this way? And then you'll know where to focus your energy. Send it messy. And then after you interrupt these things, the next step is to reframe. So talk back to that inner critic with compassion. And you can say, I know you care. And your worth is not tied to how perfect this is, how flawless this is, how impressive this is. And then you can also say progress is more real than perfection. My goal is to strategize and optimize. And then done is better than perfect. And the last one, my favorite one, is there's no need to be embarrassed. We're learning a new way forward. We are learning a new way forward. It's okay that we went there. It's okay that this thought came up for us. It's time to just try something different. I'm here to help you, inner self. If you do inner child work, this is a great one to integrate into inner child work too. Is I'm here to help us find a simpler path. I am here to make this a smoother path for us to walk on. And then the final step is to practice support. So this can look like letting someone in and saying, hey, I am practicing letting go of perfectionism. Can I run something by you without judgment and with a sole focus on any glaring issues that are here? And just remind them of your goal. Here's what I need from you. Here's what I don't need from you. And do this with people who you trust and just practice being vulnerable with them. And do remind yourself in all of these steps that this is practice. and taking any of these actions imperfectly and just trying something a little bit different is the win. Even just by listening to this and by asking yourself if any of these things show up and getting curious with yourself, that is a win. And I want to leave you with this reminder that perfectionism is not who you are. This is something that you have learned to do, and now you are learning to do something else. And today we explored what perfectionism is, what it's not, how it can be very obvious, how it can be subtle, how it hides in your self-talk, and how you can start shifting it just one moment at a time. And I want to share a reflection prompt for you for this week. And you can do this backward looking, or, just even in the past 24 hours or currently what's top of mind for you right now. And if you like to journal or talk to a friend or just think and process it a little bit, or maybe do like a voice note recording or something, what is one moment this week where perfectionism showed up for you? And what's one way you could tweak how you reacted to it next time? Next time something like this happens, what is one way you can respond differently to yourself? And as you do that, again, just approach with curiosity, be gentle with yourself, and learn that this is not the final step in the journey. This is just the beginning. And those as you continue to take these patterns forward, or these tips for noticing in real time, remember to notice, interrupt, reframe, and practice getting support. And taking that first step of just noticing, just getting curious, just thinking about these questions and the reflection that I shared, that is huge. Such a huge step forward, such a win, an imperfect step forward. And next time we will explore how perfectionism erodes your confidence and what it takes to rebuild that trust in yourself and your voice and your work. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I so look forward to checking in with you again next week on Tuesday. And if you found this episode helpful, please share with a friend, subscribe, rate the show, or leave a comment or a review. It truly helps me more than you know, and it helps others just like you find this support that can totally change everything. So for more inspiration, you can go to my website. It's in the show notes, and you can find me over on Instagram or TikTok at Laura Coaches. And I thank you for being here and for choosing to explore imperfectionism with me. And I can't wait to talk to you next week. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for listening to Perfecting Imperfectionism. Tune in each week for a new episode where we will explore challenges that overt and covert perfectionists face. For more information on how to work with me, or if you want customized one-on-one support, head to lauracoaches.com to book your complimentary consultation with me, where you'll learn more about yourself, your goals, and the steps you need to take to achieve them. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Always consult a qualified professional to address your specific concerns.